and yesterday I did a review on the Kenda K270, and I think it's a pretty good tire. I got a couple thousand miles on here, and it's not even wearing that bad. And I've been driving these tires in rough weather conditions. I have a Kenda K761 in the front. It's not a bad tire, but it cups. So, and no matter what, whether you balance the tire or not, it does the same thing. So I haven't, I have tried a Kenda K270 on the front, and it's good. So I'm just going to run that tire combination most of the time. I think it'd be better. Because in New York, actually, it's similar. The type of tire you want is actually a rough road tire, or almost an off-road or dual sport tire. It's just better for driving conditions here because the roads are rough, so if you have if you're running just a straight up street tire, you might end up cupping it or messing it up from all the rough road conditions. But I chose that Kenda K270 actually by accident. I just had I couldn't get the Kenda K761, and I saw that tire, and I said, let me just try it. And I said, let me see if it's good. And it's actually pretty damn good. I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. I like the fact that it doesn't wear down too quick, because I've used a Shinko 244. Those wear down really quick, and they're just not a good tire. And on the KLR, they actually chunk. But that's a heavier bike, But you actually get chunks of tire falling off. So that's no good either. That's crazy, And what I found with these Kendas, they never really chunk out on you. They might cup on the front. I guess it's hard to avoid a tire on the front of an XR from cupping, It's going to happen. That's normal. A little bit of cupping is going to happen. There's nothing you can do about that. But to have chunks of tire actually falling off is just not acceptable, and that's what happened with the Shinkos. They actually would chunk off. I've never had them happen on the XR though. I've used the Shinko 244s and I've never had them. I put snow studs or ice studs in Shinko 244s, and they were alright on the XR. And I've tried them with tire studs on the KLR, but it chunks the whole tire lug off. So that's just no good. I'm running the heated grips right now. So yeah, I was thinking about one thing I noticed in a lot of comments from people on the videos. A lot of people say the way you drive in New York is totally insane. But I have realized one thing though. New York is a unique style of driving. It's just not your normal style of driving. It's different. Even for cyclists, and I haven't seen other cities in US that drive quite like this. actually, I wanted to take a picture of that Sprinter van because it looked really nice the way it was outfitted. So yeah, the style of driving in New York is interesting though, because cyclists, everybody, the way they drive in New York, you would think, oh, these people are assholes, or there's a lot of missed collisions and things like that, but you really can't go by that because New York's a fast-moving city, crowded. It would be like going to Vietnam and saying to them, you guys are like having all these near miss collisions. You guys are driving totally insane, you know, like in Hanoi or you know, any one of these large Asian cities, Manila, you know, there's so many near misses, but it's not actually that dangerous. It's just people doing calculated moves, you know. It's a crowded city, so people have to do calculated moves to get around, you know. They're not going to be, you're not going to be driving 100% super courteous and watching out for every single vehicle that comes near you. You know, you're going to stop and wave someone. You know, none of that stuff goes on there because it's fast moving, just like it is in New York here. But I do understand why people would make comments like that. You guys drive like assholes. You deserve any kind of accidents you have. You know, you hear that because if you're from like Kansas City, if you drove like this in Kansas City, people would run you right off the road. You know, they'd be like, you're an insane maniac, get the fuck out of here. You know, they don't put up with that stuff. But this is New York, you know, it's a crowded city. You drive the way you need to get around. It's just the way it goes. You know, you can't really. You got to do what you got to do, you know. But like that guy trying to, you know, block me from going around him. There's no point in that. But you know, there's occasional drivers like that. Pretty windy today. Yeah, so basically, I mean, the way people drive in New York is pretty crazy, but it's calculated risk. You know, people are driving around fast, getting around where you got to go, making quick moves, avoiding bottlenecks in the road. You know, you go around stuff. If you're a cyclist, that's what they do. Cyclists are even more. You know, they don't even stop for traffic lights. But I know, like, I've never lived in Kansas City, but I've driven through there. Some of these Midwestern cities, they're very correct about driving and stuff like that, and the police are also very enforced. You know, you don't really get, but I mean, you get the possibility of getting pulled over in Kansas, you know, St. Louis, or I shouldn't say St. Louis, I'm talking about Missouri. That's a rough city. But Kansas and Kansas City, things like that, these Midwestern cities. They drive a certain way, and they don't like people doing stuff. You know, so there's all kinds of things that happen. People do their thing, you know, but they don't like the style of driving in New York, and they would call it, you know, if they were watching a video of you driving here, they'd be you're an asshole. You deserve every fucking accident you have, you know. But I think what you have to remember is New York's a fast-moving city. It might even be similar in some aspects to Southeast Asian cities. The difference is in Southeast Asia, they honk their horn a lot to avoid collisions. They use the horn as an avoidance of collision. A lot of horn tapping. There's not so much of that here in New York. People get mad from that kind of stuff. From tapping, on your horn all the time. I don't think they'd like that. That would be something that people would frown upon here. But they do use their horn if they're about to collide with you, But they don't use it as like an avoidance thing to let people know, hey, watch out, I'm coming through. The horn is not really used for that purpose. The horn here is used more like, hey asshole, watch out, and if you do use the horn for too much avoidance here, people do get kind of annoyed. And there are ordinances not to use your horn. People use their horn anyway, though. I mean, you'll always hear horns here in New York. But it's just not as much as it is in Southeast Asia. It's the same, though, similar driving style. It may look like chaos, but it's actually not. Like, if you look at any Southeast Asian city, you look at people driving motorcycles and cars and bicycles, you would look at it. If you look at a major intersection, you'd probably say to yourself, oh my God, these people are about to smash into each other 100 times. I've counted 100 times, like someone almost smashed into someone. And I don't think you can really do that in a big crowded city, like an Asian city like that. You can't sit there and critique every close call, because it's a whole combination of vehicles coming very close to each other, but they're honking their horn or avoiding each other. There's actually no collisions, So that's better like that, Whereas in some of these Midwestern cities in the U.S. and even Florida, interestingly enough, like Miami and stuff like that, is a very crowded city, but you can't drive New York style on a motorcycle in Miami. People will actually hit you. So it's unique to different parts of the United States to how you can drive. They're not all the same. Somebody's trying to call me. I guess I'll wait till I get there. Yeah, so basically the driving style in New York is different. There's not a lot of police enforcement. In New York, you drive around how you can get around. You do what you got to do, Yeah, New York is more of a city where you get shit done. But there are some close calls. You do see some assholes, ever since the pandemic, you see a lot of people just driving like total fucking assholes. Like you see that guy on the electric, he's just fucking weaving around and doing his thing, He ain't stopping for no traffic lights. He's just moving, That's new to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, you didn't even see those vehicles around the city, very rarely. A lot of electric bikes, though. Definitely, you've seen a much more, a huge increase in electric vehicles of different styles in New York. But I remember prior to the pandemic, I saw a guy like on on a mountain bike that was retrofitted with a 2-cycle motor to it that drives the rear wheel, and he was like hauling down 2nd Avenue, and I saw a cop pull him over, and then I saw a girl with no helmet actually coming on 2nd Avenue from Harlem. I saw her get pulled over by NYPD with no helmet. This is prior to the pandemic. Now there's no enforcement at all. I mean, you just go around the city and do your thing. I kind of like that though, and I hate to say that because I don't like being messed with. You know, like I have a box in the back now. You know, and when you get to, you know, when you're driving around the city, occasionally you'll get like an opportunistic police woman or man that will attempt to pull you over just for an easy ticket. They'll see you with a big box in the back, and oh, this is going to be an easy one. You know, this guy's not going to run. And it's just more like an opportunistic ticket. You know, you're an easy. It's always been like that in New York, though, for cops. You know, they go for the easy target, and I hate to say that because not all cops are like that. Like I said, there's different people, you know. But for the most part, like in a traffic environment, NYPD went for the easy target. That was always like that prior to the pandemic. Now they don't even bother with any traffic except for cars. You know, motorcycles are completely off the radar. Occasionally you might get like a highway cop trying to light you up, but it's just not even funny. They're not even close to you, and they're like trying to light you up because you're splitting, and you just, you know, continue on your way. You don't bother anybody. That's just the way it goes here in New York. But definitely the riding style here, I have not seen another city in the United States. Maybe some people could comment in on that without being nasty and just understand that New York is a certain riding style that you might interpret to be assholish style, but it is what it is. You know, I mean, you know, people drive the way they drive. You know, you can't really change it. You know, it is what it is. But it would be interesting to hear from other commenters, like, do you encounter people driving in different parts of the United States? How do they drive? You know, because I have found, like, LA has a certain drive style, but you couldn't really compare it to New York because you don't get the chaos in LA that you get here. You get heavy traffic in LA though. That you're gonna have to split your way through, and it's, you know, you'll be splitting in downtown traffic, highway, you know, freeway traffic. The problem with LA is the freeways just get jammed up, and they're jammed up for miles and miles. You know, you'll just be splitting. You'll actually get vertigo. You know, splitting there because the amount of splitting you're doing would be insane. I mean, that's just in LA, you know, like you let's say you're splitting on the 101, you're leaving Santa Monica and you jump on the 405, and then you start splitting on the 405 till you hit the 101. You might be splitting the entire 20 miles, you know, of a highway, and really like just stop and go traffic, you know, solid like this, you know, you're just splitting on the freeway. That's what happens, you know. There's not much difference, but you don't get that congested small city like New York. Like New York, Manhattan Island is a small island compared to LA. It's so spread out. That's why I said the driving style in New York, you can't really compare it to LA because LA is a different animal. Chicago has its own style, but it's definitely, like, you know, Chicago's got a lot of underground trucks. You know, trucking delivery roads, you know, that are all underground. so they keep the commercial traffic underground. So that's a different riding style. I don't think motorcycles can be ridden all year round there. They can here in New York, but it gets really cold in January and February. I ride all year round, but I don't think I could do it in Chicago. I'm almost sure I couldn't, even with heated gear. You know, I got heated grips on this bike and I got heated grips on my KLR, but I have to switch to the KLR in January because it's just too cold. The wind. I haven't tried this windshield. I haven't tried to use this bike all year round with this windshield. Maybe you could, but the cold wind blowing on you can be pretty bad. So I think what you want to do is avoid that cold wind. But like I said, I haven't seen a driving style quite like New York in other cities. Alrighty, buddy. I'll see you in the next one.